you are the most overrated in the sense that
That there is a halo effect or like a rep bias. Here's my thought process. I think, obviously, after you've just won something big, nobody wants to be the guy that gives a loss to the world champion. And nobody wants to give a loss to, like, even before that, people will be like, it's David Africa or whatever. Um, I will say after Belgrade Worlds, I was very shattered. Um, that was I took that loss a lot worse than I did Korea because it's like you made one final, so you can excuse that loss as like um what's the word, freshman jitters. So you can excuse that. If you go there a second time, it's not a problem anymore with the random luck in the final. It's your fault. And that's how I saw it for myself. I was very, very demolished. Especially, what do I think about them? My thought process is, well, let's hope a breakup doesn't happen mid round. That's really my thoughts. Like, there are really stories of people having such bad times. Like, woo,
all
hello.
right. Well, here we are with David fucking Africa. I'm not gonna give a CV for you. You're a world debating champion. Once you become one, you don't need a CV. Not even gonna mention the other competitions. We all know there's many of them, some better than others, but what's important is you did it all. Welcome to the show. How do you feel?
I'm glad to be here. When you messaged about the show, I was really excited because I like showing up on debate podcasts. I love rambling about debate. I'm kind of a loser because it's like, how people talk about NBA, like who's the goat? Is it MJ? Is it LeBron? Like, I do that with debate, and like no one else gets it. But I really love talking about stuff like that. So I'm very happy to be on.
Funny that you say this because this podcast has been inspired by NBA podcasts.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
as you know, we share this sentiment. We are NBA fans. We
Indeed.
follow this. So I was like, why not have the same conversations and the same spicy conversations
I
on
see.
debating as well? I think it's gonna be fun. So let's start it off with a very interesting question that I have.
Okay.
So apparently there is a self-proclaimed David Africa Fan Association.
Oh, those
They call
guys.
themselves Afrifans, if I'm
Yes,
pronouncing this correct.
that's
Can
right.
you tell us a little more about them? And if there is one message you had for them, what would it be?
I'll tell you something. Um, so the Afro fans, it actually started when I was a high schooler. Um, I know the people that set it up. Actually, I don't know if they're still the same people. Um, but uh, the batch of debaters in Ateneo High School. So I was in Ateneo High. Now, of course, I'm in Ateneo University. Um, so the batch of debaters I was in, some of them were close friends with people from other schools. I think it was like an all girls school because at the time it was an all boys school. But now it's become co-ed, so liberalization. But what happens is they're in a group chat. I'm not in that group chat because I don't really go to so much to like parties and events and stuff. And they're like, it'd be funny if we made a fan page for David, and then everyone's like, okay, game. And then they make a fan page, right? And then they're like making memes. And what happens is a bunch of other people get fan pages as well. I think there were four actually. This is like Philippine high school debate lore. I won't bore you too much with the details, but that's me, Kyle Chan, who doesn't debate anymore, Raymond Chuseko, who doesn't debate anymore, and you'll recognize the last one, Bobby, Bobby Batala. So it was called the I think it was the Abhinav Batula Fan Temple or Bobby Batula Fan Temple, and there was this whole meme like competition race to the bottom. Safe to say, my page is the last one operational. So in the end, I won because at some point, I really think the ironic fandom became a little less ironic. Uh, so it was fun to watch that shift real time. Um, but I know the people that, like, for example, the one that posted the most recent meme. It's a guy I know. So we go out on, we're friends. So That's the story, pretty much.
Well, for those who know me, I'm a big Bobby fan. So,
Same.
Bobby, if you're listening, you should come on to the podcast. This is an official invitation. I'm gonna get in your DMs very, very soon. So, please come on. Uh, but yeah, that's very interesting. If you want to tell one story that kind of defines Philippine school circuit, Philippine school debate circuit, of course, what would it be?
I can't speak to what the circuit's like right now, so this is a little bit because I haven't been so involved. I stopped coaching my high school maybe 2 years ago. Um, there's a really lots of really dumb stories about the circuit. The circuit got into lots of dumb stuff. Some best left forgotten. So let me just think. Um, well, there was this story. There's a circuit. So something called IDEA. So it's short for the Interscholastic Debate Association or something like that. I think it's a little defunct now, but it was very good for high school development because what happened is they'd have three. So they have a novice tournament at the beginning of the year called IDEA Light. Then they'd have IDEA 1, 2, and 3. And then at the end of it, they'd have an invitational IDEA grants. And it's basically if you won IDEA 1, if you won IDEA 2, if you won IDEA 3, or and then after that, like they tabulate your total points, your record over the season, and then they invite you if you're in like the top 16 or 24, depending on what the association votes to ratify. That's not so material to the story, although I'm curious if such a circuit exists in other countries. It's a little sad that it's defunct now, but no one's like really willing to run it. Anyway, so the story is it's Idea 3, I think, or Idea 2, one of the two. And we're in UP Los Baños, which is UP has like a series of campuses all around the Philippines. So there's Diliman, which is in Manila, it's in Quezon City. It's very close to Ateneo. It's like just across the street. And then there's Los Baños, which is like uh an hour or two drive away. On most days it's a 2 hour drive away. So we go there, and we're like mid round. I think it's like round two. There's an earthquake, and then we go out, because we evacuate, and we go back, and we're like, what are we doing? And it starts raining. And we're at the middle of the square. It's raining. It's awful. We're like, am I allowed to swear? I'm allowed to swear, right? Like, fuck this shit. This shit sucks. We're gonna go to 7-Eleven. Come back. We're almost late for the round to start again because people have been called back in because earthquake stopped. We go back in. All I do that speech is make earthquake jokes, and I'm like, I'm gonna shake this round up, or what's that like the there's a word. It's like they will really feel the aftershocks of this argument, and I think we lost that round. So I was much worse as a high schooler, as a high school debater. Um, I think midway through college, I learned to you have to stop having fun a little bit to start winning, and then after that, I learned actually you win more when you have a lot of fun as opposed to just a little bit of fun. But that's a whole nother story. I guess that encapsulates the Philippine debate circuit. It's not so serious. Um, well, some parts really take seriously, like PSDC. So, uh, Ateneo Debate Society hosts nationals regularly, and PSDC, and then there's a curse for Ateneo High School. Ateneo High School never wins. We used to win quite a lot, like before 2009, and then after that, streaks upon people always losing. And it's so funny is the people that beat you usually they join Ateneo Debate Society in college. So, um, what's an example? Miko got the PSDC finals. He's an Ateneo high schooler. Lost. You know who he lost to? That's right, Ignacio. uh, Luigi also lost to Ignacio, I think. He was also at Ateneo High School. Ignacio was from a different high school at the time. And then yeah, I think a bunch of Ateneo high schoolers, Toby won twice. So a bunch of Ateneo high schoolers, went up bravely against Toby in high school, like the demon he was, and then they were slaughtered. I also lost, so such is life. But it's a rite of passage for Atenean high schoolers. I've lost the plot of this question. We can just conclude this now.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is obviously when you get pretty good at debating, the motivation kind of changes. And I mean, you have certain moments that motivate you, you have certain goals that are kind of more clear. But at the beginning, it's a bit weirder. Obviously, like there is some curiosity about it, but at some point, the curiosity dives off. You're still pretty bad at debating comparatively because you're new at it. What keeps you going at that moment in your experience?
So for me, I'd say the curiosity died maybe in my midway through my second year of debating, or near the end of my first year of debating. And this was in first year high school or second year high school. Um, what really kept me going? Intense insecurity, fear of missing out. My batch was a very strong crop of debaters at the time. And Matty was part of that batch, if you know Matty. Um, and then he moved to Harvard. He fucked off to Harvard. So what kept me going really was like, I can't lose to these bitches. I'm David Africa. I'm not gonna lose. So then I kept debating and I kept losing. And then that extended basically all the way until first year college. And then after that was when I won my first big thing. And then so some of the insecurity faded, and then the main driver became, well, let's see how far we can take this. And then after that, I think the main driver was really like, I want to be the best in the world. And the spark for that transition away was really Ignacio, where come to the org room sometimes we talk about like philosophy of debating, like what debater do you want to be. But yeah, so basically what kept me in, not good, I don't recommend this at all, but really intense insecurity, really toxic coach. If you're listening, fuck you. I hope your teaching job sucks, you piece of shit. I really hate this man. um yeah, I don't think you've ever met him, he's probably gone now. But yeah, our coach in high school, our main coach in high school at the time was really bad. I mean, we've had some good coaches in high school, but uh, that one was really, really bad. Bad guy. Bad guy.
What was bad about it?
So by the way, his name is Henry Fernando. He's a really bad guy. Um, well, there's like the normal toxic coach stuff, which is like you pit students one against one another. Like you'd say, like, oh, losing this round was your fault. And then there's also like this more sketch stuff, like he treats you very weirdly, like you know, you know, yeah. I don't think I need to like, not good, not good, not good. Basically, yeah, we expelled them from ever touching the kids, ever, like touching or holding like position of power in debating in our school. I don't actually know if he's with anyone else, but we'll be sure to let them know in case they have him as a coach or something.
So, what have been the greatest rivalries throughout your debate career?
Rivalries. It's a little odd. I've never really seen myself as having like a one-to-one rival. I like to think of rivalries as more of a time thing as opposed to like a skill level thing. Why do I think this? I think it's a little sad if your rivals are only those just as good as you, because it's like you sort of leave the rival behind when part of being a rival is striving to keep up with them. So I think a rivals is like they're in your year level. They're gonna graduate when you graduate. They leave when you leave. And this, they're there for your journey. Who have I thought of as a rival? Well, one is Matty. Matty Tan. If you're listening to this, hope you're having a good time in the United States where it's very cold. Uh, who else? I actually don't know who is like. I mean, I'm probably like misremembering the year level of some of my contemporaries. I think maybe Naomi. Like one of my first tournaments where I didn't make it actually into the World Schools team, but one of the tournaments where I debated under them to like sort of try out, partially develop. It was like this tournament in Thailand hosted by Loke, I think. And what ended up happening was in that tournament, it's me and Kintin, if you remember Kintin. And then we sort of get demolished by like Naomi, which is kind of odd because it was Asian Schools British Parliamentary Open. We're like, Malaysia, but it's fine. It's a good experience, good debating. It's pretty cool. And we lost. And then I think they knocked us out in the semi. And then I was so sad too because like lots of good debaters were watching, and I was like, I want to do well, and we lost. And then who else? Who else is in my year? Is XK in my year? Uh, I mean, yeah, it's like I'm not I'm pretty spoiled for choice with like very good debaters who are in my year level, and also like very good. I think it's best if your rival is like a good person. Like they seem like in general, I'm pretty happy with like my selection of rivals. So yeah, I'd say those people.
So when you went to Worlds, do you have a list of people you want to cross off, people you want to beat?
Uh no, actually, I have a list of like what I want to do, and our goal for this world still being our goal was to not be boring. We were a little tired of online debating because we this is Worlds was our first online was our first in person tournament since the pandemic began. So we were a little tired, and my outlook on it was online debating had a little bit of a negative effect on style, and it had a positive effect on like tracking notes and delivering material, which is why, like, I get that people whine every generation that this like generation has really forsaken style. I mean, they whine that every generation, to be fair, but also I think it's partially a fair criticism, and in that sense, my thoughts are like, guys, we need more riz. So my goal was to not be boring. If I ever caught myself giving a speech like I used to give online, right, where people would whine that I speak too fast, because it's true, I do speak too fast. It's like if I'm speaking fast, at least I have to speak like nicely. So my goal was to be more interesting than really beat everyone. Um, if we lose in a tournament, then I start thinking I want to beat this person. Or if we get an unfair call from a judge, I think next round, if they get this judge again, I'm going to win their heart. So I'm more of like a vengeance type. So in the round, but in the tournament, but after the tournament, I usually forget. Um, unless it's really egregious, but like nothing's really gotten that far. So I don't really have a list per se.
Well, but in the tournament itself, let's say the last Worlds or Bay Worlds before that, you've done three of them in a row, if I'm
That's
remembering
right.
correctly. Who was like really top on the vengeance list?
Top on the vengeance. First is really Miko and Ignacio. Man, I really haven't beaten them in like an I haven't like really beaten them in like an in-person tournament or like an even an online tournament. Like with the two of them together when it's like a sure call, like it's like a call, and like all panels are like, yes, David won. They're on my list because they beat me in training all the time. Like I in freshman year, I would be so insane about training. I do like 80 rounds a semester, 90 rounds a semester, because we had like a point system in Ateneo, and then I'm very I gel very well with like points based incentives. That's why I play video games, right? Uh, so yeah, they're on the top of the list. Hopefully, if they come back, I'm for sure going to. I'm flying to whatever tournament they're going to. That's one. Two is well, it's really the people that beat me in the final. I'm like, okay, who's next? Well, the first one, right? So Ignacio, Miko, Tin Lovro, uh, CG, that's Hamza and Taha, right?
Yeah,
Don't think I don't know if that round robin where we were called over them really counts, but it doesn't feel like vengeance if it's round robin. If it's round robin, you want both panels to call you to win, so I don't count that as vengeance either. Um, Same goes for. I mean, this isn't like any ill will. It's just like the sport of debate. Like someone dunks on you, you got to dunk on them back. What else? Oh, the final after that. Well, I've beaten Sean in ABP, so I got my vengeance on him. I think I also got revenge on XK and Greg. So it's Sajid and Surudip, and I see them again if they come back. I'm going to that tournament too. Uh, and then this worlds we didn't get the chance to well, I guess round nine, but round nine I kind of feel like we got the fourth in round nine, not gonna lie. So I don't really count that as a win over that Sydney team. So uh we did do too well in that Australs either. So I guess them as well. This is really on the well. I was gonna say you guys because you guys really trashed us in day three. Uh, so Sometimes I still, people were really hyping us up for that day 3, and I was like, stop hyping us up. You're gonna jinx us. You're gonna jinx us. We're gonna perform like shit. And then we did perform like shit, and we like spammed 10 arguments. And Harish was like, you should have just weighed. And we were like, yeah, we should have just weighed. Alright, sorry, I really get into the rambles about this stuff. You know my feelings on
No,
this.
no, no. Let's give some context for the listeners. So, this was the last Worlds, Madrid Worlds. Um, you guys had perfect day one and two. So, how many points is that? Uh,
That's like
18 points.
18, 18, 18.
18 points. So you're absolutely destroying the tournament at that moment. Um, you beat us guys in round four. You beat pretty much everybody. Um, what happened then? What was so before? Like, how was your mentality going into day three?
Well, our mentality there was really like try not to let it get to our heads. Trying to be humble. So I think that was what kept us from going from like giving like a fourth performance. Instead, we're giving third performances. Um, but it's like we were really just like how go back to the basics and make sure that what we're saying like makes sense. Although I think it started really a little poorly because in the China round, we were I think it was a Sydney team that was directly opposing us that kind of had us dead to rights because they had like a point for every point we had. So analytically, we were pretty matched, I think, in that round. And then at some point, we during the round after that, like we sort of kept falling in love with the case we ran, and so at the end, it did kind of get to our heads. At least that's my read of it. Um, so I wouldn't call it a collapse. It's more like a backslide. Um, that's what I say would cause that. But of course, I mean, that's not like if we had performed the same way we did, the rounds would have been called differently. Um, like that was also pretty exceptional debating from like. I've been really thinking about your case in round 9, by the way. Like the harmonization stuff, I really don't think there's a good response to it. I've been thinking, and I think maybe it's like I'm not gonna go in depth into the debate material, but that stuff really gets in my head because it's like this is good material, like this is kind of brilliant. So how did I get? But yeah, okay, I rambled again. Basically, what happened? A little bit of a backslide because we kind of fell in love with the cases we were running, and so we weren't like being so strategic with them.
Yeah, no, I wanna talk about these rounds. I think it's at least from my perspective, it was very fun. So um, obviously, because from my perspective, I had the same like feeling of vengeance or whatever you want to call it. So you beat us in round four. You're on top of the top. We perform apparently very well at round seven, getting 90 and 89. So we get to the top room again. We see you guys again. We are like very excited. We're gonna take this one. So um, I don't know if you watched the episode with Rumen, but we did talked about like a bit about round eight and how we kind of approach that one. So how was around eight of worlds? This was the immortality motion. If you guys are, I think, OO, we are CO. Um, what was that around from your perspective? How did you perceive our speeches? Because I know that there are some crazy moments in those speeches, so I always wanted to get the opinion from somebody who's actually in the round.
The first thing is we found the BOI response very funny. It's like sex. You keep talking about sex. We wanna have sex. You have sex on the table right now, or something like that. And so that was the main moment in my head. That's what I'll remember that round by. Um, my take on that round, because most of my reflections post round are on my speech personally. So my reflection was I had three arguments. I could have dropped it to two and just spent more time weighing. I was really in love with the argument that like if you're immortal, there's like a 0.001% chance you just get stuck suffocating forever. And that's like an equivalent to hell. And then you should weigh up 0.001% chance of hell very highly. I really loved it, but in the end, I probably should have dropped it because at the end, Gov can just say, if you die, there's also a 0.001 chance you might go to hell. It's like, that's fair. So probably should have dropped it. My reflection on that round, which we took into the breaks, was really just argue less, way more, or impact more. And that tended to work out because we immediately saw improvements in the first two break rounds.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that because my perception from you guys from round 4 and round 8 was that you tried to do a bunch of stuff in one case. So like multiple arguments, etc. Of course, it depends on the motion, but you kind of spread out a lot in opening. Then in round 9, I think you were a little bit more focused. So I guess you say that the lesson here is you kind of need to weigh a bit more. Was that something that kind of happened naturally at the out rounds? How did you actually manage to make such a change during a tournament? Because obviously at that point you're used to something, you're doing pretty well at worlds, you're one of the top breaking teams. So how do you make yourself change your approach?
So I have some interesting thoughts on this. So I think people get really fixated on a style that they think they're really good at or they're the best at, and that's fair because you're affirmed by these external results. I like to think of debaters like how do I explain? Y- You know how Chat GPT, right? Where it's like it's built for one thing, or let's say you tell it to do this, but because it has so much inside it, it can do other things. So it can like it can answer text. Um, well, I might sneeze in a bit. Sorry. I guess that'll be on the video. But we can also make images, right? I think debaters are a little bit like that, where as you debate, you naturally accumulate like the skills to whip, even if you never whip, because you're spending all this time watching whips. You watch at least two every round, right? Like if you're listening, if you're a judge, right, you watch eight speakers, and so you sort of like I guess like a neural network. Like you gain these data points, and then you might not be using them actively, but they're there. So I think at the top level, right, debaters have already accumulated this so much stuff. So you know, I as a debater, I got very used to speaking fast, right, to speaking, lecture sort of. An old coach described my style as like professorial. Like I kind of lecture to you, which is like I guess a little condescending, but to as a debate style. But you get that if you needed to, you can change up your style because you have subtly gained the skill sets of other people, especially if you debate against them a lot. Like I can pull a pretty convincing impression of I don't know how you say like Miko, because like I've debated against him quite a lot, and he's also my partner quite a lot. So I'm not gonna do an impression of Miko; it'll be too insulting, because I make joke impressions, not real impressions. Um, and I think what happened in that was we're like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. So we need to recalibrate. So maybe for the first few rounds, this worked, but something's changing. Maybe it's something with the type of judges we're getting in high rooms, or maybe it's what's happening now that we're facing teams that have adapted. So maybe it's not that we've lagged in performance, but it's that the landscape around us has changed. Really, it's impossible to say, but what we know is that something has to change. So we're like, well, with the consistent comment we've gotten, our judges at the time was Ashish, Harish, Din, is just really way. Of course, it's like, argue better, be more comparative. I think, to be fair, even if we weighed more in round nine, I don't think we would have gotten more than a second. Really, I really think about it, and like, I still don't have a response to the harmonization stuff. That's just a free benefit. It's just too smart. So I'll come up with something later, maybe. But the third from a second from a third is still good. We still could have run a different frame. So it's like we scaled back. Our thought process at the time was, well, we've been doing all this and it worked before, but right now our gut is telling us something is very deeply wrong. So we can try it out for the first break round. Okay, it worked. Let's try it for the second break round. Okay, it worked. And it started working better and better against better teams. And then we realized the insight here was the better a team is, the more they're gonna run. So the more they're gonna run, the less you're gonna have to say, and the more you're gonna have to say about what they've said. So I was like, oh, we should just be weighing like that one. You know the round about the IMF. Every team gave like a well built, good argument. Two of them, three of them. It's like, what else is there to say other than stuff about the debate? And so we just said stuff, and then we weighed.
Okay, we've mentioned a couple of times the round nine. I'm gonna tell you a fun story of from my perspective on round nine, and we can discuss it a little bit more. We have the time. So what happened is, um, Roman stands up, gives the speech. We have a case. It's a pretty okay case, and then Toby is speaking. So one thing you have to know about Roman, he is he gets very nervous, but like not angry nervous, if I can if I can say it like this, in like these particular moments. So he knows what are the stakes. Toby is speaking. He's like, you have to rebut this, you have to rebut this, you have to rebut that. So I just look him, and I'm like, it's okay. Don't ask me questions. Uh, because basically what happens is I stand there and I just think about something, and it's it's actually connected to what you referred like the harmonization stuff. Um, but I go to room and I'm like, just chill. I've got this. Because for me, it was like a click moment where that kind of case kind of worked. So I'm wondering like, do you think they are just one of these moments where sometimes some motions, if you figure something small out that is kind of a big deal, the, it's very hard to do anything about it. So it's more of like once you hear it, you just have to go for the second, or um, yeah. How do you think about this whole experience?
So I'll talk about it a little more generally, because I get what you mean, where it's like, don't don't talk to me. Let me cook. Let me cook. Like I think there's a moment where you really capture lightning in the bottle, which is what I love about debating. And my thought process is you really have to try and cook back. Like my thoughts are there are rounds where you can go for the second. Maybe if it's like a semi and you really want the tournament, like you want to win the tournament, you'll fine. Take the second. It's up to your personal priority. But my attitude is you gotta cook. You gotta cook back. If they're cooking something good, you really can't let that go. I'm a big first or fourth type of guy. My thoughts are the debate that I want to see and the debate that I want to be part of is one where you match brilliance with brilliance. If someone's coming up with something good, you try and part. You say we can have harmonization too, or we have harmonization better on our side. Or there's an example of this. So Quintin, I think, is one of the most brilliant debaters. And one example is it's the motion where you have asymmetrical warfare. It's like a small country against a big country, right? Or like a country against like a non-country group. And the whole opening debate was like, actually, if you let them use lethal autonomous, sorry, if you let them do war crimes, they're more likely to win. If you let them do war crimes, they're more likely to lose. And then Quintin just says, you know what? The smaller state should lose. It's about letting the war be so short that they don't starve. You should rather have them lose so that they don't kill civilians. I was so blown away because I was in opening. I was like, dang, this is so smart. And Ignacio's like, I'm not gonna take that shit. And it's like, actually, it's not about how long the war is, but how likely they are to start wars. Even if war is short, the fact that it's short makes them start more wars. Like, oh, this is what I really love about debating. If you cook, that's fine, but you can't expect people to not cook back. Okay, the metaphor of cooking has been lost, but you get what I mean. So my attitude, always try and fight brilliance with brilliance. You're never gonna grow if you always go for the safe seconds. There are times where you might have to do it, like in a really important semi, but that would kill me, honestly, to have to give up, like to not rise to the challenge. Like I really see debating as like you pit your will against someone else And if you fail to come up with a better argument, at least because at least let it be because you tried and you can honestly admit defeat. But if you don't try and you go for the second, that's like respectable, but it's not the debater I want to be.
This is a great segue to a question that I really wanted to ask. So, you've been to three worlds. You didn't win the first two. You made the finals. So, the third one, you probably had sufficient amount of pressure towards yourself internally, maybe externally. You can comment on that. What was your overall mentality and what were your inspirations for mentality to approach this whole thing? Because you could have said, I have two finals. I'm okay with what I've done. I don't have to prove anything. Why bother?
Mm, I will say after Belgrade Worlds, I was very shattered. Um, that was I took that loss a lot worse than I did Korea because it's like you made one final, so you can excuse that loss as like um what's the word, freshman jitters. So you can excuse that. If you go there a second time, it's not the problem anymore with the random luck in the final. It's your fault. And that's how I saw it for myself. I was very, very demolished, especially in that dollarization round. I was in an internship. I was working with dollar products. Like, I mean, okay, far be it from me to say I'm smarter than Mr. World Bank consultant. But my boss watched the round and he said I thought your argument was wrong. So I was so shattered because it was within reach. Um, so I was very sad. And the hard part was really waking up the next day, like, shit, I gotta go to work. Well, internship. But, I went to the office. I'll just call it work. Uh, and like, how do I put myself back together in time? I'm not whipping anymore because um, not gonna, Miko didn't, Miko members, he's a better member than he is a whip. And he's a better member than me. So I whip for him, remember? And then I didn't whip for Toby. I remember for him because, well, at the time I thought Toby was the best whip in the world. Now I know he's the best whip in the world. But uh, well, there's a debate on that. But I am very much a Toby shill. I shill for Toby. Anyway, where was I? So I said I will do this. Like, if not for myself, then for the org. I don't want to let another teammate down. And I was really thinking, but if I go and I lose, I will let another teammate down because it's no longer their fault. I've never blamed my teammate for that loss in worlds, but if we lost the third time, it really would be my fault. Like, I had two shots, and then a third, and it's especially worse because, like, what if I don't make the final, right? Like, what are people gonna think? So there's all this uncertainty around it. So my mentality going into it wasn't really that of a broken man. It's kind of a funny way to call it, but it was more like um there was an openness, like a reception or like an indifference to what this would mean for me personally. And I think that unlocked a lot of different avenues to run things in debate. Like, maybe my speech will just be the groundwork for Toby to run as many compelling reframes as he needs to. Um, or like and I took a different attitude to this one. So I didn't like case file as intensely as I did before. Instead of going to like 20 prep tournaments, I went to like two or three. And I did Australs before with different like Australs was the major preceding it, and I did that with different teammates. So for this cycle, um, my thought process was like, this third shot is gonna be the last shot. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And I make jokes about if I lost this one, I'm going to Vietnam. But like, I didn't even know if I was gonna be eligible. Um, for because you can't debate in Ateneo if you are post grad. Like, you can't represent them in the major. So I was like, This is gonna be it. And so I told myself like, if I don't win this one, I really just will have to accept that it's not in me to be the greatest, and I have to move on with my life. So part of it was like return to that curiosity. Do I really have it in me? Um, I don't believe in like the, oh, it's just luck. Maybe it was luck because I've had three shots. That's statistically unlikely. It's 1 in 4. So it's like you have to lose the 1 in 4 3 times. That's so like, I mean, that's I didn't do the exact numbers on that, but it's like bad. That's bad essentially. So that was my mentality going into it. I don't really have an answer for, in the end, why did I choose if there was so much riding on it? Because really, uh, I couldn't tell you. Something pulled me to it so strongly. So I was like, okay, there's just an openness that has to be there for it.
I share a lot of the things you're saying as well. I think what's interesting. So I had this conversation with Milosh, and it was like before the major, if it's UDC or WDC or whatever, you have to burn your bridges. You have to be like, don't think about what comes next. Don't think about, oh, if I lose this final, I can win the next one or whatever. You have to actively not think about those things. And I think after um, getting to, I'm not sure if you know, but with Euros, if you're ESL, you can do both finals simultaneously. So you can break at both finals and you can potentially win them. So, of course, me and Roman, the losers we lost both of those finals, being the only team at both of those two finals. So every final at Euros that we could have lost, we lost it. Um, and I was like thinking about this because at the back of my head, I always wanted to also do WDC after that. So uh, once it was known that I was gonna DCA the next Worlds, and I'm not gonna go to that one, and I'm convening the next Euros, so I'm not gonna go to speak at that one as well. Um, for me, it was a very good way to say, this is it, this is my chance, so I have to put everything you've got. There is no other option. In reality, there might be another option. Technically, I have two more tries at Worlds, but like it's not gonna be the same. Time goes by, but I think this is a very important thing that you say, which is um, really not think about what comes next and focus on that. Um, do you have any
I agree. I agree.
particular do you have any particular inspirations for like competitors, NBA players, or like philosophers? I don't know, because I've always found it interesting to draw comparison and stories from like athletes that are competing to debating, because it is in a some way the mental game behind it. When you're competing, when there are certain pressures, when it means a lot to you, it's similar.
Um, so I'm not actually a Kobe fan. Uh, people were like, although I did like the quote. It's like job's not done, but I'm not really a Kobe fan at all actually. Um, I took inspiration from the Spurs. If you remember their loss, uh, it's like they got to the finals 1 year, right? And I think they lost against Miami, and then the year after that they won, and it was a series of like strategic missteps, like not getting the ball in the right hands, and so on. And there was a short documentary on it on YouTube that I was very compelled by, because the moment that it was over, the game was over, there was no more chance to win, and it was like a series of heartbreaking, shattering losses in sequence. Like it's not just one reason they lost. It's like, oh, it's not just that they screwed up the possession, but it's also that there was a strategic misstep. They didn't attack the rim right. All that stuff. You can analogize that to debate. Like, oh, I didn't run this argument right in Korea 2021. I did all these. I did like 10 preemptions. None of that mattered because I preempted the wrong thing, so on and so forth, right? And you sit down to it and you look at Greg Popovich and how he approached it, and it's not, he didn't blame them. And you look at Tim Duncan, the leader of the team, who could have blamed anyone, right? It wasn't his fault they lost the final. He didn't blame them. He was the one that took, like, if Tim Duncan's like, yeah, yes, yes, coach, we'll do better next time, coach. How can you as any of his teammates be like, oh yeah, yeah, it wasn't my fault, it was everyone else's fault? You have to take the blame. So I took two lessons from that. The first is that you can't beat yourself up over it. And it's a very, very tempting impulse, because if you beat yourself up over it, it's actually a little selfish, because you say, I've beaten myself up for it, so I've absolved myself. So I see that the reaction to blame yourself, it's all my fault, as like, it's a personal failing, as a way to absolve yourself of the shame of losing. I don't believe in that. I believe you should just accept the shame of losing, because it's not the rationale. We'll get them next time, etc. As a promise. That is a way of saying, I agree with you, right? Like, you shouldn't be thinking about the next round. You shouldn't be thinking about the next tournament after you've lost. Take a moment to just accept that you've lost, and that was very important to me. That after those two finals, which I lost, and then after the Austral semis, which I lost, and the other UADC semi, which I lost, and the AVP final, which I lost, and then I said, and I could sort of track my maturity based on how I reacted to those finals, and I'd say by the end of by those losses, by the end of it, my mindset has really changed, and I grew more and more to appreciate the example of the Spurs. So again, the first thing I said was like, you have to take the blame, and um, you have to take the blame without um beating yourself up for it. And the second one is no excuses. Next one, next time you go right back to work. There's a time to mourn, and once that time is over, you go straight back to grinding. So what did I do after that Worlds I lost? I went to Kida Open, and then I lost that. I lost it in the finals too. So and after, I think I won the next tournament after that. So uh, you go back, like, what are you gonna do, right? Okay, you have one of the best seasons of your life. You make it on you trash your way through the playoffs to make it to the finals. You lose. And what do? You can't, by the way, go straight back to the finals again. You have to go through the 82 rounds, 82 games. You have to go through the playoffs. So you have to accept it's a different game, and you have to change. And that's what the Spurs did. They changed their team. They changed their approach. Their coaching was more tight. Their plays were more on point. The players were much more disciplined. In a similar way, I admire sort of not just the attitude in the moment of mourning, but the discipline and the resilience to carry that into the next season. Of course, I think I was a little bit benefited, right? Because it's July and then it's December, so it's in reality it's a much less of an onerous wait. It's like half a year instead of just a year. So it is how it is.
Yeah, if I can draw a similar conclusion, so I am a Kobe fan. So um, this is not like whole mentality thing. I think that's a little bit. There's more nuances to it, but I did have like this. You definitely know it. There's this clip of Kobe. It's I'm not sure which year of the NBA Finals, but they're up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. It's a press conference. They ask Kobe, um, so why are you not smiling? Something like this, and he says, like a very um, serious manner. He's like, "What's there to smile about? Job's not done." And I, I, I had it in my mind that if I do well, so this is I'm gonna take a little bit of your time, but I think this is a fun story because we're on the topic. Um, Before going to Worlds, I had a dream. This is how fucked up my brain is about debating. I had a dream before the night before flying out to Madrid that we are breaking first at Worlds. After I had that dream, I started entertaining the thought of it because I didn't really think that this is something possible, honestly. especially since, as you guys, we didn't do much prep tournament because at that point we were like, it doesn't matter that much. We've done the groundwork. Um, so I had that dream, and I started thinking about, oh, wait, if this actually happens to me, I'm a very narcissistic person. This is gonna likely get to me. I need to come up with a strategy to preemptively fight against this. And so basically, after we broke first, I actually watched like 10 times, and I made room and watched it as well. This interview of Kobe saying job's not done, and it kind of get keeps you going. But it is a long process. Even after you break first, who fucking cares? There's still I don't know, like four more rounds at least if you want to make it. So yeah, I thought about this this story in particular.
Yeah, job's not done. Job's not done. I used that. I thought about that quote too. It's a good one. I like that interview as well. I forget if that was the season. I don't think that was the season, but the one where like he did a free throw on like a broken foot, or was it a broken finger? And it's really just like, job's not done. You know, even if
Yeah,
you drop 80, you can drop 82 still. Yeah,
that was uh, that was a great moment. So you have the three worlds things. I want to take the conversation a little bit out of your life and pick your brain on the interesting topics of this
sounds
show.
good.
So, the debate conversation.
Peace.
Who's your goat? Uh, how do you approach the goat conversation? Tell me more on your feelings and thoughts about this.
The first thing I will say is I think people should have like in their minds some answer. I was like, I kind of respect the oh goat for this category, goat for that category, or like, they had a goat season. So I watched the two previous ones. They just was like goat season. It's like Danny Devon this one year, and then Rumens was like the goat of scamming, the goat of structure, framing, or something. Um, so I do have a goat in my mind. And if we're gonna segue into discussion of most underrated debater, um, I also think, to be fair, this person got a lot of accolades, but I still think they're underrated. So my thought process is, I'll build up the suspense. I'll talk about my criteria. So my first thing is I don't think a ring is necessary. I don't think the chip is necessary to be a goat. Why? Um, One is, in the end, I think the chip is partly being in the right place at the right time. Uh, some people, can't go for some reason, and I think that that's different because you can be the most well accoladed debater, but not be the greatest. Um, I think it helps. It helps in the case of your legacy. But that's separate entirely from like whether or not you're the greatest. So the second point is a goat has to have moments of brilliance that mean something to the debate community. So my thought process is this: um, you can win every tournament, but if you're not the bus driver, it's not that much of your win. There are some team ups where it can't really be called bus driver, bus rider. Sometimes it's parity, which is fine. That's still acceptable. But you cannot be the bus rider ever. And moreover, you have to have moments of brilliance. There has to be like a quote, a catchy quote, or there has to be, well, it doesn't have to be a quote, but it has to be like, this speech is an example of their greatness. You teach it to your kids. This person changed the way you debate. My attribute, I don't know if this is really accurate, but I think this is not my goat, by the way, but it's like the term structural reasons. Like, I recall the earliest use of that was like in 2015, I think, with Mifzal Muhammad, if you remember him. So that's one way you change the debate circuit. And um, so my answer is this. My opinion is the GOAT is Ignacio Villarreal. And I've had the privilege of being able to train against this person. But I really think this man sometimes just has the biggest brain. I think it's on two reasons. The first is, of course, well recognized international success. And in many of these rounds, it's unambiguous. Like in that one ABP they won, it was pretty unambiguous. Um, I will say that, for example, them getting to the finals, right, in Worlds, in that semis over us, it's a shame that that speech wasn't recorded because it was a very good round. It was like Ignacio and Miko and OG, us, me and Luigi and OO, and then like Amrit and Dom in CG, and then DMG and Shar in CO, I believe, if I'm remembering it right. It was the K-pop motion, so it was a very interesting round. In that round, I was very wowed. Of course, I was being responded to because I was the LO, Ignacio was the DPM. So I'm like, don't respond to me like that. This is wrong. This is wrong. I send this response to Luigi. But in the end, like you have to respect. This is so smart. So, but the second thing is moments of brilliance. Of course, there are private moments of brilliance, like in the training round, will they say something intelligent or something? Um, but it really has been so transformative to me, just listening to his speeches, and every time there's something new that you learn. Um, for example, do you remember that Docks Bridge round? I think it was Docks Bridge 4. And the semis was like the Swedish pill, right? Do you recall that round where the motion? Oh yes, the motion was essentially its gov was like you have like an oppressive, sexist, hateful, authoritarian dictatorship. Everybody hates you. It sucks. It's conservative. It's hyper religious. It hates women. It hates minorities. There's more. There's more. It's like it'll never change. It's entrenched. And the motion is like give them a pill that basically turns them into Sweden. That's the gov. So what's up gonna say? and, and I was really like, oh shit, the boys are in OO. Ignacio and Miko are in OO. They're going to fucking lose. And I stayed up to watch this. And then they come in and they give brilliant speeches. They give arguments how this is analogous to murder. They prove it with like so many points. And then they have like other pragmatic points. This will get you invaded. And I was like, how do you come up with this stuff in 15 minutes? Like I feel a little bit like an imposter because I really feel like I never come up with anything new. But when I listen to Ignacio, I really think 50% chance you're gonna come up with a new theory of debating when you listen to this man. And it's really like he throws out so much cheese. It's like 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, 4 frame, 5 frame. Each one of these frames, if you don't respond to it, it's you just lose a debate. So what I am saying is Ignacio is my goat. And part of this is because I've had the privilege and of course bias to witness uh, it. And part is because I think he was transformative not only to the style and the rigor of Philippine debating, but also Asian and international debating. I think it's had a generally positive effect because Ignacio was really never the type to spam. And so, it's like plus goat points. I respect that. Um, because it's like, it's how are you going to appeal to lay people if you're speaking at 10 bajillion words per second? Like, I think at some points goats also have to sound nice, right? Like you have to have speeches that sound nice. Not for any reason, like any logical, well thought out reason. That's just my thought. Like even if you're good, if you even if you like win every game, but if you make your free throws with granny shots, I'm not gonna call you the goat. So I've lost the plot, but that's why. So of course there are other close. And I'm not saying it's a clear cut thing. I'm saying of course plenty of other candidates. Um, I think part of it is that a goat has to take time. Like you cannot call LeBron. I would say you can't call LeBron the goat until he's like retired. Like even if he is the goat, it has to be like you have to like look at how their legacy has affected people, and look at what they've meant for the circuit. Um, so that's the long and short of it. I would say there's like some other remarks you can make about like uh if he deserved better or not, or if they could have done better. But I really think like there was a reasonable period of time, I would say, where Ignacio was kind of unambiguously the best speaker in the world in my eyes. Of course, I'm biased, right? Like people are gonna say it wasn't, it was someone else. And this is fair. I mean, I'm not gonna fight you over it, but it's like that's my thought, and that's why Ignacio is my goat.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And who is a better judge to tell than somebody who is like close to that person and can actually see the greatness behind? I don't think that we have the privilege of like when you see a documentary about Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whatever, you get behind the scenes, you understand. So you can have a better informed opinion. With debating, it's much different. There's different circuits. There's different opportunities. Like I've barely debated Ignacio, for example. So how would I know if not on then? Uh, but yeah, I think that's a fair answer. What are the other candidates, though? Obviously, it's a thought process that we have. You came to a certain conclusion. I respect that you have an actual answer. You have one answer, which is good, but who else would might get in that conversation? Uh, and we can highlight particular skills that you think get them there.
Yeah, that was gonna be how I would tackle the questions. That's fair. I will say when people answer POIs, I really respect when they just say yes, no, or yeah. I think people it's nicer if there's a straight, easy answer. You can explain it as long as you want, as long as there's an answer. It's actually a joke in Ateneo. It's called the Atenean answer, where they ask you A or B and say, well, I can be a little bit of both, because that's how Atenean students answer. They dissemble. So okay, other goats or goat candidates. Um, let's see. The debating is a little bit tricky because it's a lot more subjective. Like you can point to the stats in basketball, right? And you can say this person had most points per game, this person had most win shares. Debating is a little, of course, more subjective. You can point to tournament wins, but that's not nearly as objective. And speaker points, of course, we know. They vary so much from round to round. They vary so much from tournament to tournament. So who would I say are the goats in my eyes? So the first thing is, of course, if you're gonna put Ignacio, I will of course shout out Miko as well. I think for every achievement Ignacio has, Mika's there too, or Mika's got something comparable. Um, I won't spend too much time on that. In general, I don't think it's so interesting because if I do, I'll really just chill Ateneo debaters the whole time, and I'm such a loser about that. So I don't think that's like as productive as some of the other thoughts I might have. So who else do I have? The first thing, and I think it's become a little in vogue to maybe hate on the Boseo speeches, but I really think Boseo was a generational contributor to Riz. He was he had kids quoting his speeches line by line, and honestly, that is much preferable to them just saying, "Hello, I am David. I am the prime minister for government bench. I have two arguments today." You know, I am a big believer that it taught people to just be brave and crazy with coming up with like examples and thought experiments, and I think that was an important contribution. Of course, he won, and of course, great debater, right? Whether like that was a close and contested final, but in the end, he brought it home. So that's one, and I would say I respect the goat of Riz. There's an argument to be made if he had more Riz than Sheng Wu, and I will say that Sheng Wu, probably in some speeches, um, was a lot more funny and a lot easier to follow than Bo, who, you know, in some speeches, I think he waffled and sort of talked about a topic for too long, for example. Um, but I really think, in terms of just pure Riz, it's either Sheng Wu, but it's probably Bo. Who else? Other than that, I mean, I think Sam Van Elk is another one, or Sam Block. I don't know. Um, the if you recall that Oxford IV, where it's a video but it's only audio, and then it's like 2017. It's like a global government, and then the first argument that they make is like, by the way, if you institute the global democracy, this takes away all dictatorships. Or when they respond to the POI, and then it's like, what what language, what currency are you gonna use? Bitcoin, I don't know. And it's like, Riz. That's Riz. I have respect for debaters who are great but are known for the Riz and are exceptional for the Riz. That's that. Um, okay. What else? Can you suggest a category to me? It's a little there's a lot to be covered in debate. There's a lot of skills in debate. So can you suggest a category? I'll work with that.
Well, of course, we can do the category of scamming, which I think it's kind of like connected to this, but it's a little bit different. So you've heard the podcast, you know the definition of scamming. It's basically persuasion, which I think it's kind of has multiple dimensions, but yeah, which which person comes to mind when I say scammer in debate sense?
Scamming, huh? One thing I'll say is I think the pick of Hamza is a pretty good one. So this is one response that really stood out to me in one round where Hamza goes, you know what? If you give them the win on this response, fuck it, I'll just lose or something like that. It's like this is just wrong, but if you really give it to them, I can't go against the fact that you decided to deny the real world or something like that. And I was like, this shouldn't work, but I think some judges would buy it. So that's I mean, like it works. If it works, it works. Respect for that. I think last I saw Hamza was like in Singapore. That was a long time ago. Um, so Hamza's a good pick for scamming. Um, what's the other one? Um, my other main thought for scamming is it's not so recent anymore. I'm trying to recall. Um, Seamus Dove, who I respect very much. Um, Again, like what you called us, it's like gentlemanly. Like sometimes Seamus would just be like that was really a cataclysmically good Sydney team. Uh Ollie and Seamus. And then it was like Seamus would just sometimes be like, there are four reasons for why this is wrong. And then three of the reasons would not exist. But then it's like one of those reasons is like nature is good or something like that, and it'll be convinced because it'll be like it just feels like there's so much to go against because the specific kind of like scam is like the argumentative weight feels insurmountable, so you have to frame, but the argument is selected in such a way that it's very impossible to frame. So it's like, I think that's good. I think that's inherent to framing the argument, positioning it so that it's really hard to dislodge. um I have one more. And it's an American, or North American. I'm trying to recall their name. Uh, ah, Greg. I partnered with Greg for a tournament a long time ago. We lost that one to like Matt Kaito, I think, and Ahmed. Uh, and then Greg has really a way of convincing you of things, just sort of like easing you into it. And then by the time you've like listened to the speech, it's like, wait, I'm believing something totally unreasonable, but it's like, whew, like it's a. I don't think scamming is a negative thing. By the way, I think it's a skill in debate, like persuasion, right? Like the way of phrasing and understanding it. And I think the manner and sort of collective set of strategies taken to just like frame it in, like what's a good one? I mean, like in the final, right? Like there was like for a while they had me believing that capital markets was really the reason dollarization is like bad and then like redirects money around the world. Like, wait a second, this is like 10 premises in sequence, and somehow I've been rizzed into thinking that we've flown into it by two sentence. Like it's like 10 premises like condensed into two sentences. So it's very, very very, very skillful persuasion.
Who do you think is the most overrated debater of all time?
Myself. Absolutely, my answer is myself. I really think people give me too much credit sometimes. Uh, and I think the mark is that I have a fan page. I think the mark is that I have a fan. I get, by the way, this is not a real answer. This is not a real answer because I'm afraid of controversy. But this is not a real answer. But I do believe it. I'm not gonna point to a debater and what if this person messages me on Facebook? But I mean, I think the real answer though is myself. Because like I think one, I get more credit than I'm awarded to, and I know the debate reason is like, oh, everyone sees their own worst side. Like you see all your failures, but not everyone sees your failures, right? You only see everyone else's successes. But I do get that like I don't think I'm so good I deserve a fan page. You feel like yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I was, I'm gonna comment on this because um, I ask people controversial questions and I don't want to seem like the guy who never gives more controversial answers. Um, I'm not gonna answer the question because I think there are layers to it, but I think I agree with the answer of you. And here's my opinion on why. I think uh, in the conversations, like when you guys, for example, won this year, you obviously did very well. But I think so. Maybe this is not true in the Asian circuit, but it is my perception of how things went. Toby, he was a bit underrated in how he performed at these worlds, uh, which I think that he deserves a little bit more credit for what you guys did that particular year, and I think you would agree with that to a certain extent. So just because you're the fresh world champion, it only makes sense for me to say that at least currently you are the most overrated in the sense that you have a pretty good partner, and it's hard to say which one was better, but Toby was better in the speaker tab. I'm gonna be as controversial as I can
I mean,
with this take.
I agree with this. I think Toby and I think in the prelims, Toby definitely outperformed me. Um, I would say in the finals, he definitely outperformed me. Quarters and semis, I think it was more me, and then the octos, it was probably even. Um, my thought process here is by the way, first of all, is I agree with you. I do think I get a lot more credit than is really warranted, especially the speaker tabs rightly reflect that Toby outspoke me in the prelims. Of course, Toby, if you ask him about this, will dissemble. Toby will be like, no, no, he's a humble guy as much as he makes jokes. The contrary, but it's like I also agree that there is a halo effect or like a rep bias. Here's my thought process. I think obviously after you've just won something big, nobody wants to be the guy that gives a loss to the world champion, and nobody wants to give a loss to like even before that people will be like it's David Africa or whatever. I really think I do get overrated. Um, people will also point to this as like, oh, he's so humble. That's cringe. That's cringe. I really am overrated. You have to accept that, even if you're a fan. Um, 'Cause, my other thought here is that there's a little bit of an idolization in debate. I mean, it's different from like the NBA, right? Because in the NBA, even if you idolize LeBron, you still gotta play good. Like if he doesn't put up enough numbers in the game, it's whatever. It just means he's not playing good this game. But debating is a lot more about narrative. It's about how you perceive something. If you really like this person, you're more willing to credit arguments, which I think is, by the way, like not a function of active malice. But I do agree. Like right now, I am 100% the most overrated debater in the world. I am for sure though that in maybe like I think in a year that'll probably dissipate. Like my next worlds will probably be gone. Um, but yeah, you're probably right. I think it might problem is I think public memory tends to be a little different and a little selective. I think part of it depends on how well recorded you are. Like I think one of the reasons why the Boseo speech has so much longevity is because I mean the production value in the round is out of this world, and it's also the PM speech, so it's the first speech to be heard, so it's very beginner friendly, and of course the Riz. Um, my thought process is I will probably I mean unless like I kill a nun or something, I'll probably and I mean I haven't done anything horrendous. I'm probably not gonna get cancelled. Um so my legacy is probably gonna go down. See, it's probably a little overrated, but not like overrated as I am right now. So which is like, I do feel like sometimes, like people are so scared that they just give worse arguments, which is like kind of sad because when you go into training round, you want everyone to be brave and to like fight. Um, yeah, those are my
I
thoughts. But to be clear, I don't think what you're saying is actually all that controversial. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think to be fair, it's important also to comment on this whole like rep bias in debating. Obviously, it exists. Obviously, sometimes I've seen crazy calls, if I can say it, uh, in favor of rep teams. I've seen it the other way as well. Sometimes it has even favored me. Sometimes it hasn't, obviously. But what I've come to appreciate because right now if I go to a debate competition, so I probably wouldn't be like I wouldn't have like crazy rep, but I definitely have rep. Uh, been to the most recent World Finals, and I think the perspective I've gained through that is, but wait a minute, guys, I've struggled a fucking lot to get here. I don't care if you think in particular round I didn't do as well, and somebody gave me the win because I'm a little bit more happier than you. Shit happens. I've gone through that shit as well. We've all gone through that shit, and I think it's obviously like we want to make the community as objective as possible. We have to have the best judging as possible, especially in the moments that matter. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes shit happens, and I think it's okay to say at least the people who have rep, they've earned it to a certain extent. It's not just like absolutely just having a rep because you're from Oxford, or you're just having a rep because you're from Ateneo, which sometimes might happen, but rarely is more than the you are that particular type of person who did that pretty good thing. Would you agree with that?
I agree that like sometimes there's some deservedness and sometimes it's like, yeah, fuck it. Um those are it's like in the grand scheme of things. It's like it's just another one of those things. Um I think though, uh my personal take on it is like in the moment if I see a call and it's like it's for me, but in the judge is like not justifying it well, or I disagree, I think another team is one. This doesn't really happen often because I tend to be arrogant because I argue in a way where I think I win because I don't believe in arguing in such a way where you think you lost. It's like, why are you giving a speech where you think you would lose at the end of it? Sometimes you just really do lose. And in those situations, I will probably rate the judge lowly and explain, in feedback, I think actually the call was wrong. I do think like if you disagree with a call, you have some, not like an obligation, but it's like it probably is for the best if you explain to the judge. In the end, though, I agree that like if you work hard for it, then like you deserve some adulation. I'm a little leery if it means on the way to like flip crucial exchanges, for example. Um, i- if it comes down to like it's forced, the judge is forced to intervene, then it's like I guess this is like it's not any more or less arbitrary than like flipping a coin. But in cases where it's like you said nothing and they're just like, wow, that was so good, your presence was so convincing, it's like your interpretative dance really spoke to me. I would speak up against that, but I think that's different from what you're saying, of course. I'm just speaking more to um like a situation where it's egregious.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's always the best option to be fair. So, if you could change one thing about debating, what would it be? Or like about the debating community, something that you'd like to call out as a mentality or something like this.
Well, I'd be remiss in saying this if not saying this first. Although I think this is different from what you're intending for the question. Um, which is I think the biggest thing to change about the debate community is the weird prevalence of like harassers, and then like them being in positions of power. Like fuck them. Like I don't know why you're letting this person coach, and I think I guess it's endemic to most sports, but for debating it just seems particularly bad. So that's one. The other thing is more towards the debate. What would I like to change about the circuit? Uh, I think there might be a better and more thought out way of incentivizing judging. This is, I feel, a problem that's particularly acute in the Philippines, but of course it's felt throughout the world more generally to varying degrees. Just I think some circuits really just don't give enough incentives to judge. I think some circuits, for example, if you're the judge, that means that you're like there for N. You didn't make the contingent, and which is a little sad, right? Like um, it's not true for all circuits or all cases because it's like some circuits do have a good attitude towards judging and they really do reward it, or they really treat it as its own career other than debating instead of the side career. But I think, and to some degree it's changing. I really think there should be more like credit. I'm not so sure if the way this should be done. By the way, is like similar to how it's done in Asia. There's like a top 10 judges, like um there is for the world circuit. But I think if we are to treat and call judging as a form of competition, like if we treat it like, okay, this means this for your judging quality, or you know, you're an IA, so we give you some award for this, we give you some resources for this. If we do treat judge implicitly like as a form of competition, then we can't let arbitrariness like, oh, you're a great debater or you're a great judge, but you happen to be conflicted with teams in the final, so you can't ever get that accolade. So I think to some degree the biggest thing I would change about the circuit is sort of the structure and overall attitude we have towards judging, both in terms of how circuits develop them, but also like how they're incentivized to perform in tournaments. I also think it's the other way around as well sometimes, where we do meet the judges like people just shit on judges like either privately in group chats, or like they're really rude in during the OA. Like I guess the judges that fall asleep in tournaments deserve it. Like there was a report of someone falling asleep during a round, like a panel falling asleep, and fine, fair enough. That person can be shit on, but I'm thinking more like, this person has gained like a bad rep. They've been blacklisted, then they never really know why. Like there's no chance to reform. So I think the attitude towards we have is towards judging is, it's not 100% broken, but in some places and in some circuits it's especially bad.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful when implementing those things, but there's definitely some improvements that can be made. I want to ask something different. You mentioned your girlfriend during the World Finals.
Yes, I did.
Um, how does your girlfriend feel about your debating career, and how has your debating career impacted your romantic life?
Uh, well, prior to that relationship, I dated a debater. My girlfriend right now doesn't debate. I've been with her for a year and a half, around thereabouts. I really love her. Like, I mean, I don't. I maybe my message was probably sufficiently sappy, and like, I wore her scarf and everything, and like I made a post about it. But I really do love her. Um, my thoughts on how it's affected the romantic life. The first thing is she's always known I've been a debater. In fact, that's like one of the ways we got a little closer, because it was online era and I was doing a national tournament, and then she was like, "Oh, send me the Zoom link. I'll watch." At the time we were still friends, so I guess you could say debate was partly to credit, because it was an interesting thing about me. Um, but also debate can be a little cringe, because debating groups tend to like be a little, well, this one is that sometimes they're incestuous, which is like debating groups, like you you're in relationships with people in the friend group or in the organization, and you have sex with your, it's just gross, it's gross, it's gross, and that just kind of makes like that tends to lead to like really large friend circles, or like where everyone knows each other, and so debating can seem sort of like a monolith. So it's a little hard when like you go in and you're like you're at a party and everyone's talking about debate. You're the only non-debater there. So I'm not saying that it's hard to have debate, but it's just like you have to be aware that similar to like any hobby, like you have to let them know about it, and also like you sort of have to play translator sometimes. Uh, it's just part and parcel. It's like I see it as like a good thing, as an opportunity. Like, she does dance and she used to do competitive figure skating, and she has a lot of hobbies as well. And so I see it as like that's mutual exchange. I learn about her hobbies, she learns about mine, and then she learns about, oh, we hate this guy, or oh, this person gives such a bad argument. And then when we talk about that, it's like, oh, so this person did this, and then she's like, oh, really? And then we talk about that. So in that sense, I think some people are overly pessimistic about the prospects of debate in the relationship. You have to accept that it will take away some Saturdays and Sundays for dates. So you have to make time for that on the weekdays, or you have to just say like, no, I'm not eyeing this tournament. I have to go. I'm going on a date. Um, So you have to say no to your friends. They're like, please come IA for us. It's like, no, I've got a date. And then other times is I think debate helps. Part is like, it gives you an excuse to go to other countries. So it's like, well, can I bring my girlfriend? Don't have to pay for it. It's like, can we have her? Can like I'll pay for a room nearby, or I'll pay for a second bed in the bedroom. Or actually, by the way, I pay for a second bed. So just stay in the room. Blah 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 blah. So it's like that. Uh, so I think debate helps if like you think about it actively and like you're a good person. And in some ways, it's a challenge. Overall, I don't think it's like negatively impacted the relationship on net. Uh, Other than that, um, I think having a relationship in debate can be helpful because it's really just like nobody got me, at least you got me. Like if I gave a shit argument, at least I have a girlfriend, you losers, and then I dip out of the round. So it can be helpful in that way too.
What do you think about couples that debate together?
Respect. I respect. Uh, I imagine sometimes debating when you're both debaters and you're debating together or you're debating separately and you're competing can put a strain on the relationship. I'm thankful that I've never really had to seriously go through that. Um, what do I think about them? My thought process is, well, let's hope a breakup doesn't happen mid round. That's really my thoughts. Like, there are really stories of people having such bad times. Like, like they're fighting about something else, so the guy decides to shaft the girl or knife rather or whatever, or like they're they fight because they give an argument and then the person didn't respond. That becomes a relationship fight, not just a debate partner fight. It's I imagine it's a little the dynamics are a little different from debater non-debater to debater and the debaters are teammates or they're like closely interlinked. So my thoughts are I would not recommend, but I mean if you're brave, fortune favors the bold.
Break or breakup is
I
is an interesting way that I would describe these
Yeah.
types of relationships. Well, I think this has been great. I would like to have you another time on the pod in the future, maybe in a different format. But I think we've covered a bunch of interesting things. Um, so what I would like to do at the end of the podcast is you get the platform and you can do whatever you want with it.
Okay. So I get like a minute or something.
If you want 10 minutes, I'll give you ten
I'm
minutes.
not gonna take up that
You
much time. I'm not gonna take up that much time. I'll just do maybe some shills. So first is please like the Athenaeum Debate Society Facebook page. Road to 10,000 likes and all that. Please also, if when we have tournaments, come to them. We've just finished the one for college, but if you're a high schooler and you're watching this, I think it's too late to sign up for Ateneo Debate Camp. We may have some workshops later in the year. If you're a Filipino high schooler, sign up for PSDC right now. Right now, it's nationals. It's nationals. You children, you should be coming to our tournament. So if you're a Filipino high schooler, please sign up. Um, what else? Other than that, uh, please be kind if you're a debater. There's so much evil in the circuit. There's so much grossness. If you really have the choice between making a joke about someone's face and not making that joke, just say it outside of the speech, please. Finally is shout out to, of course, my girlfriend. Love you very much. I just saw her today actually, so I'm very happy. And if she ever sees this, I'm so embarrassed. But you know what? I ramble about debate a lot too in person, so it doesn't really change much. Uh, Thank you for having me on, Nikki. You are quite a good friend, and I'm very glad to be on your podcast. And I'm also happy to help in whatever way I can. That's already I have to say. Uh, I don't know what day is it? It's March. In March 24, 2024. Hopefully, I am not canceled. Uh, or hopefully, I haven't accidentally killed a nun or something, which I think is probably the only way I could get canceled. I'm really just hoping I don't turn into a bad person. Okay. God bless. God bless.
Thank you, David, for being on the podcast. I'm not sure if you're the most overrated debater, but you're definitely highly rated in my heart.
You're definitely overrated. Okay, sorry, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for being on the pod. Thank you for being open to the conversation. It's been great. My thing at the end of this podcast is follow us. I just made an Instagram page. It's probably gonna be live by the time this is up. Follow the page, follow whatever social media you'd like to do this so that this podcast can get to people. I just want to have the chance for you to see that I've made the video. If you want to click it on it or listen to it, it's totally up to you. But I need to get that chance, that opportunity to have a little space in your time and your day. And I also think these conversations have been great. They've been very fun for me. So you know what? I don't care. Maybe you don't want to watch it. If you don't, fuck you. It's been a blast.
Like and subscribe. All right, good chat.